Hey guys, welcome back to One All's Pub. Alright, we're going to try a little something different this time. Because of the lighting issues and stuff that I've been having, I've grabbed the pub table that I have inside my pub and drug it out into a more well-lit area of the house here, and I'm trying to see if we can get a little bit better lighting going on here. Alright, let's talk about the zero tolerance 0900, or the 0900 as it's frequently called. This is a Les George collaboration with Zero Tolerance. It's a design based on his Harpy and or his ESV. I think the Harpy is actually a little flipper, and I think the ESV is a non-flipper. I'm not sure. I'm not that well versed on Les George offerings, so but I believe that's the case. And Bert, if you know otherwise, feel free to correct me. Either way, it's a nice little small EDC size knife, little pocket rocket, designed with Zero Tolerance's KVT system, ball bearing system, which makes her a very smooth knife. And although they've changed their KVT a little bit now, I mean, this is kind of more like your regular old, if there is such a thing, ball bearing system nowadays. Doesn't look entirely different from a lot of other ball bearing systems, so I'm not sure what makes it so proprietary anymore. But regardless, it works just as well, and that's what really matters, I guess. And as you can see, it just flips amazingly well. It's definitely a pull type or a light switch type flipper. It is very hard detented. It takes a lot of effort to overcome that detent, and what you do, though, it just rockets out. So that's kind of cool. About a 2 and 3/4 inch blade, and I think a 3 3/4 inch handle. Ergonomic wise, you know, the shorter handle like that, you think it might be challenged, but actually it's really good. It really comes across as a 3-finger knife, your index finger there, and then your other two just grab here, and then your pinky you think is a floater. But really, because of the way that the butt of the knife here is angled, it really creates a shelf for the pinky and allows the pinky then to wrap up and actually get a hold of the top of the knife here. So even though it's a 3-finger knife, it feels like a 4-finger knife, which is really a neat ergonomic trick that they pulled off with this. It really feels excellent in hand. Does not have a lanyard hole for you lanyard freaks, so you can't put a lanyard on there to kind of extend the feel of that grip, but I don't really think you need it. And I like the fact that there's not a hole there, because A, I hate lanyards, and B, the holes just muck up the visuals of the knife scale. So all titanium frame lock with the stainless steel insert. Cool lines with the way it's milled, and it's kind of very conservative presentation of the knife. No big ZT logos. The only thing you really have here is just, you know, your normal stuff on the side here that they do with the number and who designed it, and Kai USA, and then the steel, and then your serial number. But, you know, blessedly devoid of big ZT banners and whatnot. Not that I mind those all that much. I mean, I'm not necessarily anti-logo guy, but on this knife it would be too much, and the fact that this knife is so small and they kept it clean really helps. You do have the ZT name here milled into the handle, which is just fine. It's such a blank canvas that you're going to see all kinds of people doing custom work on these knives, anodizing and sandblasting and acid washing and whatnot. As a matter of fact, check out Toad Sticker's channel for the review of his 0900. He's got his all kind of customed up and pimped out, so it's pretty cool. As a matter of fact, his knife is actually my old knife. It was the first 900 that I got. I got it from Blade HQ, and when I got it, for whatever reason, lately I've just been having kind of weird luck with ZTs, but when I got it, when you looked at it straight on, it looked fine, but when you kicked it this way, you could see right here, about the size of a dime or so, there was a heavily scratched area, just like somebody taking some steel wool or something, a heavy abrasive, and really done some work right there. Like maybe the knife had been damaged sometime during production, had received a nasty scratch or something. So they just hit it with some steel wool, took the majority of that out, or I don't know, steel wool or some abrasive, but I'm sure much more so than steel wool, because steel wool wouldn't dent S35. But they hit it with some heavy abrasive and sanded it down to get rid of that scratch, and then probably just chucked it back in the Stonewasher. And like I said, when you looked at it like this, it looked fine. But when you kicked it at this angle, you could clearly see that that aesthetic flaw right there in the blade. I called Blade HQ and got a return authorization to send it back. But before I got a chance to do that, I was talking to Rick over at the Toad Sticker channel and mentioned to him what was going on. And we kind of figured that, heck, if he was going to get one, he was probably going to acid wash it and do all kinds of crazy stuff to it anyway. So I just sold him that one at a little bit of a discount, so he could save a little bit of money getting it, and I didn't have to go through the hassle of going through the return and whatnot. So I just sent it down to him, and so check out his channel for his review of that knife, and you'll see that he, through his treatment of the acid washing and stone washing, everything that he did that little area is completely gone now. So. But otherwise, and so then when I got this one, then I actually called Knife Art and had them hand pick me out one that didn't have any issues. Made sure it was centered, made sure it didn't have anything screwy going on the blade or anything at all. So it was really another very excellent buying experience from Knife Art. They always take care of me. So thanks, guys. I appreciate that. In this particular example is about as good as 0900 as I think anybody could find. It is absolutely perfectly centered, which isn't always the case with ZTs, bearing knives, I'll be honest with you. And it just does not have a single cosmetic flaw on it. The only real issues that I have with this knife at all, and they're minor issues, I'm just going to bring them up just to talk about them. First of all, before I even say those, let me say I really dig this knife a lot. I mean, I love this knife. So the next three things I'm going to tell you about, two are design issues and one's just an execution issue, are not meant as overt criticisms. I'm going to spend some time talking about them, but I'm blowing them out of proportion here just to talk about them. But they really don't bug me as much as you might deduce from what I'm going to say about them. But just keep that in mind as I go through these. Number one was the edge. The factory edge on this was crap. I mean, it was sharp, relatively sharp, but it was so unevenly ground. It was like whoever was grinding that on the belt was just wobbling all over the place. And it took significant work to get a decent symmetrical edge back on it, or onto it, period. If I can get some of my lighting to play fair here. I did put on the wicked edge, and was able to finally, it took quite a bit of work, was able to finally get a nice, consistent, and symmetrical bevel on it. That's the execution complaint that I have, and it's just, that can happen. Because I'm a knife sharpener, it's not a big deal. I can usually fix most of that on my own. But it's worth noting, in a $192 knife, you get an edge that's all wavy and crappy like that. The other two things are, one is the clip. This is kind of Kai's clip they use across the ZT and the Kershaw line. It's just this little fold-over clip. It fits the knife size-wise, which is nice. But just in general, I hate this clip. Well, hate's a strong word, but I dislike this clip. Let's put it that way. I don't necessarily dislike fold-over clips in general, but this one is so short. I mean, it's not tall enough this way. With those screws there, you have maybe a couple of millimeters there to fit your pocket lip over. I mean, that's probably not even 3 mil. And so putting this in and out of the pocket is a little bit challenging just because of the way those screws are. Now, here's what you got to do, ZT. If you're going to have a fold-over clip, you got to make this fold-over area taller. You can wrap it around and then cant it back down and come around, kind of do like this and then come back down or whatever. Or you got to flush mount these screws, one or the other, because that's just not enough room. It's just, I've had several ZT and Kershaw knives with this clip, and it's annoyed me every time. Not enough to make me change the clip out. So again, like I said, I'm kind of blowing these out of proportion, but on this particular knife, because I like this knife so much otherwise, I really wish they had given us a better offering for a clip. Like even the old spoon kind of style, kind of like clip you see on a Skyline or something would have been preferable in many ways to this. But I don't know. It is what it is. If even, like I said, just make that a little bit taller, then you're fine. Or flush mount those screws. But at any rate, it is a minor annoyance. The other thing is when you go to close this knife, on every frame like I own, when I go to close a knife, you have this nice cutout here kind of area, which is obviously for accessing it to close the lock. You release the lock, you push the blade down, and it doesn't clear detent. See that? So the geometry for where the detent ball is with this large flipper and where the way this cutout is just isn't well executed. I don't know if it's a design issue or if it's just not executed right, but you still have to overcome that detent then. So you have to cheat down a little bit to get that to clear the detent so it's nice and smooth then. So if you just do this to make it free drop, you're not going to free drop because you're still stuck on the detent. So you got to cheat down to there to get it to, do your free dropping action there. But not that that's the biggest deal in the world, but when you're closing it and you kind of end up having to double clutch all the time, it's a little annoying. It's not a big deal. I've seen ZT do this on a couple of their other knives, and it's just, I don't quite understand how that doesn't get noticed in prototyping. Like, that's kind of annoying. Oh, just cheat your thumb back and do that. Well, okay, but, really just that cutout's there. It fits the thumb perfectly. I don't want to have to do it back here. I don't know. The reason that it's that way, let me get my Fisher Space pen out, and let's get some light on the subject. Maybe we can do this. Is the detent ball, which you can see here, right there, is set clear back here on the lock bar. So when you go to close, let me shut the lighting back off now. When you go to close this knife, the blade has to travel quite a distance before it hits that detent ball. There, it's bumping on the detent ball without me having the lock bar pulled out. So as I pull that lock bar out, I have to go clear to there before I'm actually on to the detent ball. See that? So you can clearly see that there doesn't leave any room for the thumb. So the thumb has to be back here to get that to release properly. Again, not a big deal, just more of an annoyance on something that I've seen on some other ZTs, and I wish that they would just be attentive to. If they would have moved this detent ball more up here, then I think you would quickly get onto the detent ball, and then you would be fine. That would also probably have caused, I think, if you monkey with where that detent ball position is, that it might make the detent hole come out a little bit more as well, because that detent hole would then, as it transitions around this corner, would probably have to be farther this way, farther out here onto the blade maybe, like you see in my ADV Mini Tack Butcher. You can see that detent hole right there. Now they have even less space to access. Andre gives you even less space to access your thumb, although there's still plenty of room. And that flipper is even bigger than the ZT flipper as far as overall breadth this way. But when I go to close this, it clears that detent without me having to monkey around. I can keep my thumb where it belongs, and it's on. The detent ball now sits on the blade. So that's not, so Andre did it right. It probably may, in the way that this scale is scalloped right here, exposes this even more so. But I think that would affect how that detent hole positioning is, and maybe ZT just didn't want that detent hole exposed anymore. And I get that from an aesthetic perspective, but on small knives, sometimes you got to make some concessions. Again, it's not I'm blowing this way out of proportion just because I want to talk about it. But that said, when I'm using this knife, I just kind of train myself to be used to doing that. And if this was your only knife you carried, you'd quickly adjust that and it wouldn't be a problem. Because like most knife nuts, we all rotate between all these different knives. These kind of little quirks that each knife has then does start to become more evident. But all that said, I don't want to make that into such a big deal that I'm bagging on the knife, because I'm really not bagging on this knife. I actually really like this knife a lot. It's my favorite ZT of the year so far. Matter of fact, it's my only ZT right now. My only other ZT that I had before was the 0550 Blackwash, which I actually sold to a buddy of mine because he wanted it, and I needed the money, so it seemed like a good thing to do. I'm sure I'll get it back for sharpening, so I'll still hopefully get a chance to put that up on the bar top for a review, or the bar table here for a review. That said, I have had some other ZTs that have come and gone, even since getting this one, namely the 0808, which I recently got and kept for about a day and got rid of. That knife just didn't hit me right. And of course the 0392, which I loved, but just as I've been moving towards smaller knives, the 0392 just wasn't where I was going with my preferences anymore. So I sold that as well. And I've had other ZTs in the past that I've liked. The 556, the regular 550. I definitely have had ZTs that I very much liked. That said, I haven't kept any of them, so I guess there's something to be said for that. This one, though, I think I will keep. I really do. I really like it. It's just such a great little knife. It's got its little quirks, you know. Yeah, I wish that was better. And the pocket clip's not the greatest, but just the execution otherwise is excellent. The design is excellent. The in-hand feel is excellent. I love the steel. It's one of my favorite steels, if not my favorite steel at the moment. You know, it's just a great knife. I do highly recommend it, despite the quirks I've talked about. The clip is by no means a death sentence, and certainly the grind is kind of luck of the draw. In this deal, if it doesn't really bother you, or if you get over it, or if you just kind of teach yourself to release the lock a little further down, no problem. So all in all, a great little pocket rocket, a great little EDC knife, a small sub 3-inch EDC knife that still gives you that tanky kind of ZT feel that they're known for. The 0450 is another ZT that I'm interested in, and I may give that one a try as well. We'll see. But for now, I'm definitely digging the 0900 and definitely going to keep this guy. So anyway, pick one up if you get a chance. Neat little knife. That's 1 oz 2 cents. Keep the change. Sláinte.